So I have a small bone to pick with society. It's not small at all. It's not a small bone at all because it involves the socialized racism going on that has gone on, and people are fighting against it. Yeah, that's basically what's going on. So I've been like trying to figure a lot of things out. And one thing that's been in my mind for quite a while that I just wasn't even trying to like even talk about or bother with was this idea of or dealing with racism, because I felt like I didn't think that I could say anything that would really like progress anything forward, I suppose. But in the world of identity politics, my voice is actually most important in this. So they actually use that privilege. So it's a lot. It's a lot of problems in there. The main problem, one of the biggest problems, is the whole socialized white supremacy. How do we get out of that and identify it as we move forward without inciting a race war? Because like I didn't want to, because it felt like anything anybody had to say about it just incites it more. But it's really from the actual racists who get like upset when it comes to this stuff, because when you call someone out on some bullshit and they just like get upset, you know, because they aren't willing to change who they are or how they've been socialized, and they just think it's right and think it's okay based on familial connections, we'll say. And I think that's what's kept this institutionalized racism in place for so long, is that exactly. And then like when people are fighting for equal rights and justice now, racial justice, because we can't just skip over what's happened, just be like, yeah, that's all better now, because there's still an entire globe of disenfranchised people and policies that are still operating in place that keep people down and oppressed. And so they have to be addressed, they have to be acknowledged, they have to be righted, or just righted and removed and resolved so everybody can have a happy life. Because the militarization of police that started up was because of racist factors, of making sure that, you know, certain neighborhoods and people were kept in a state of constant fear, which made an entire collection of entire ethnic groups are traumatized and can't even assimilate to the culture without giving themselves a sort of lobotomy to even like operate in this world, or operate just with a whole cognitive dissonance that can lead to other types of mental illness. But just regardless, Black people are just not completely, but just are suffering from a lot of the mental illness in this country. And then as well as white people who suffer from the mental illness of dealing with it, because they themselves have been socialized into a society, and now they aren't, and some of them it's either some of them are aware of the society and now they have to actively be progressive and actively focus on, you know, what is, you know, it's creating this neurotic stock of people who are trying to figure out what's right after being assimilated into the society that's based on total authoritarian white supremacy and colonial tactics and an unhealthy image of themselves, because they were, or rather we were all taught, you know, like certain, like come on, like the bad neighborhoods are black neighborhoods and good neighborhoods are white neighborhoods, you know. So it's like we need to undo all this social programming, so much of it. And that's why the pride movements and stuff like this are important, because it just undoes all this fucked up social programming that we have. But the thing is, though, we don't have to, like, fucking Jordan Peterson's always getting all pissy. Like, he just did this article about, like, pride or whatever. Dr. JP was talking about, you know, this whole thing. And he's one of the biggest culprits in this as well, I feel. As along with many other intellectuals and academia folks, who even so-called progressive academia follow into this socialized white supremacy, because they don't, or they haven't made themselves aware of how their work isn't actually solving the problem if they're still spouting that the Western world is so great without addressing the misogyny and racism and colonialism and genocide. If you don't address that when you're saying that this society is great, you're making all those things great as well. So stop trying to, you know, they say don't throw the baby out the bathwater. I guess in this case, it's more like, I guess it's whatever's the opposite of that. I don't know what the opposite phrase is. I'll edit it in when I find it. But it's like you can't keep all of it. You can't have the bread and the cake and the shit as well. Like, I don't know. It's like mixing the shit and I don't know. Whatever. You can't think this way in a modern world, just willy-nilly and think that people just figure it out. Like, no, you have to be clear that certain things are not okay, or the certain ways that people have thought in the past were not okay. And we have to actively work to fix the line of thinking that's been gone on for so long. And that's for everybody. It's just especially important for these big voices that speak out and have these big followings, but really what they're doing is like creating more of the white supremacist type message, or it's like awakening it and putting it, it's like tranquilizing it in a way, because it's not really doing anything with it. It said leaving it in a coma in this middle ground, waiting for it to wake up again, because that's what's going to happen when it just was what happened if, like, you know, Jordan Peterson runs for fucking Prime Minister of Canada, and then like he unknowingly has created this cult of white supremacists, a subtle white supremacist, by not acknowledging these things. Because it's very subtle. Actually, it's not very subtle at all. It's, if you're paying attention, it's not. Because just to be conscious and black and a woman is to just notice all the bullshit. To see how this male-dominated society built on conquering and tyranny and overriding of rights and bodily autonomy and safety has just created an entire traumatized world. this society that's built on fear is only going to implode, which is happening, and there's nothing we can do about that. Because I mean, there is stuff we can do, but I feel like the ball is already rolling on that one, and it's going to take a whole lot of people to get behind that boulder to stop it from crushing everybody beneath it. We're going to need like a couple superheroes. Because it's like this deep paranoia that's in the cloth of this country, that isn't going to go away anytime soon, because the media doesn't make it better by the propaganda, with the race-baiting propaganda, which just drives the divide deeper and makes it more complicated to have these conversations with others. Because, and then there's also like commentators online who are insincere and give these shitty arguments to keep the audience. Because when you're making profits off of what you're saying, you're gonna say the stuff that's more profitable than the stuff that makes more sense, you know, because peace doesn't really get you a lot of money, obviously. If you're not speaking in some warrior code, I guess the algorithm doesn't really, doesn't favor the peaceful too much. At least not without having sort of a cultish type following as well. But I don't know. They might get that someday. Yeah. The paranoia and anxiety that's in this country between people of different nationalities and origins, national origins, and especially of Black Americans who have mixed origins, and it's unclear origins. And then when Black folks are trying to make their own culture, and this is the reason why Black people are assisted by their culture being appropriate, is because they had to build it up from scratch, essentially, just with the remains that they were left with. And and we've dealt with race. We've always been in a racial civil war, honestly, because there's always been bombings of Black towns and destruction of Black homes and Black bodies, and the incarceration rate, the unfair justice system, all these things. And all these things are embedded into the web, or the tapestry of this country. Is the blood that is written in the flag. It's in the dirt, and it's in the soil. And now, what do we do from here? Is kind of the question. It's what Martin Luther King last asked. What do we do from here? It was the last book he wrote, and he addressed a lot of these issues the same, because we really have to repair the bridges between each other, between neighbors and things like that, and really learn what trust really is and how to build trust with each other, and not break whatever stupid trust you have with the media and the government, because they're the ones who put my people with my skin color in this position. And people have believed this. Now, it's like, let me tell you what it's like. Okay, or real, to be a Black woman. Yeah, So I have a certain anxiety about being around white people because I'm from Georgia, and I understand we already know there's a history, obviously, and there's still lynchings going on today, you know, police brutality, or, you know, the mass incarceration rate, the same thing, you know, not being heard, not being understood. So I have this certain anxiety that I have to sort of repress a lot of myself, or I have to always be presenting as a nice, kind person, because I feel like if I show any bit of aggression, I suppose that's the word I would use. Yeah, I think that's also, but if I show like any bit of aggression or any emotion that isn't like positive, I feel like I'm going to be looked at as a threat. like not even just like if I'm having a bad day or something, I know I can't go out and like, like some people can go out here and just be a shitty mood and whatever, like, oh, whatever, you know, they can get away with it because they're white, you know. But if a black woman does the same thing, like, you know, goes out, just, you know, maybe I'm not in a good mood, and maybe I'm going to be a little snappy, but I know that I can't even be that out in public, even though I know a white woman can do the same thing and get away with it, because I know that I'm going to be looked at differently for just being myself, for just being a real person. But white people can get away with that because it's their world, you know? And if someone sees me acting up, then fucking that's all the excuse they need to lynch a nigga. So that's why niggas out here gotta smoke weed. that's why we gotta like smoke, because otherwise if we're just having a naturally not good time, it's gonna make white people uncomfortable. And I know there's a whole lot of folks who be like, oh, you know, whatever. Like, no. That's just because if you're making money online and you're saying shit like, oh, you can just be however you want, stop it. Just stop. Because you know full well that's not how it works out here. And then there's like conservative YouTubers and things like that, so-called conservatives, I'll say that, who are getting paid by their white supremacist audience to tell them to give them confirmation bias about, you know, black people or whatever, make sure their views are right or are aligned properly, just so they can feel good about themselves, about how they treat people, or or they don't have to change their ways. They can just trust old Pappy because he was right about the Negroes anyway, right? So yeah, like there's all this stuff going on at the same time. And so and then like, you know, I also can't even, again, we're showing this negative, with these negative emotions. Even though we should, I'm not saying that, you know, everyone has negative emotions sometimes, that's what I'm saying, you know, and we're not always going to be pleasant to each other, especially in this world that's so fucking stressful. And then on top of it, in a world that's so stressful, especially to me, and especially to people who look like me, and then on top of it, to can't even show your true emotions because of what you look like and how that may be perceived, and how you would not be heard and understood, because even though you're having the same emotions as anybody else, because the media has, or the history, the long-term propaganda against people who look like me has created this whole mess of understanding our own internal emotions and the expression of it. And now, and that's what's become this almost cult-like mentality among our people, to segregate, and even when we and it's like we can't win either way in this regard, because it's like there's still way too many white folks out there afraid of black people enough to fucking gun down a grocery store because they're in fear of us, to shoot us on the street because we're just having a bad day and we looked at someone the wrong way, and all of a sudden a brother's getting shot in the street, you know, by the police, you know. How crazy is that? Like, just because you're having a bad day and you might be rude to the wrong person, you might get shot. Your whole life might come down just because you're rude and because you're legit having a bad day. Like no one understands how, only we understand how insane that is. And when we speak about this, we get folks who say, who are the ones who are already in that group who would shoot us, to say, oh, why can't you be nice or something like that, or why can't you deal with it? It's like we've been dealing with it for 2,000 years, haven't we? Like the Hoover, like, I don't know, but yeah, have you guys looked at the Hoover Dam recently? The Lake Mead behind it is sinking since like last year. That's the state of black people right now. I think, like, this also goes online with it, like the whole trying to be the diversity and inclusive thing to even try to appeal to black people is almost a little too late. It's almost a little bit too late, too little too late kind of deal, because it's like they're trying to activate a black economy that never was there, that was killed in the beginning and hasn't had anything to support or prop it up for so long. And now, because again, they want to try to avoid losing that water, right? They want to refill the reservoir. They want to try to be more or I guess these big companies want to try to be more widely accepting of people. But if the government isn't going to take a real part of that, then all of it is just hollow. It doesn't mean anything when there's still policies and just redlining histories and debt and people still in jail, people who got away with lynching, people who got away with the bombings and the burying and the flooding, the total destruction of black civilization is still going on. And I guess this is like, it feels like it's almost like the last sort of thing they want to do is like, okay, now they utterly like sort of rooted us out, you know, like traumatized us enough and destroyed us enough. I guess they abuse us to the point now. It's like, okay, now can you guys, you know, come, now you guys want to join the party? We actually want to get you to the table now, guys, after we, you know, after we haven't like helped you at all. Just like, hey, now you know, we're not going to judge you for your hair anymore. Like, literally only like last year, Biden signed that, made lynching a federal crime. So it's not gonna grandfather. It's like you made a law now when lynchings don't happen anymore. And I hope they're not happening anymore, at least, but like, well, they are still happening. Okay, Ahmaud Arbery. But like, this is, it just feels so Like now, it's like now you do this? Like really? It's like after all this time, like now you guys want to try to do something nice or try to treat us like human beings or whatever. Like you could have did something like way back when to prevent some of these things from happening. You could have had our back a lot, like further back, or put in more effort back then. Like instead of just half seeing us as people, or you know, like it's the only color now. It's green, money, whatever. But the money's like has no value anymore. And now y'all want to be like, oh yay, Black people, you guys are people too. Spend your money with us now. After you destroyed all our businesses and our economy, and then force us back into the white labor market through debt slavery and those kinds of things, or you know, college loan slavery. That's other debt slavery. So not enough Black people are in like college debt. Now you want to start treating folks like, you know, they're part of society. You want to try to do something about it. But then also, you haven't done any re-education of the freaking people in this country who still think of Black people as an inferior race for some reason. Because they were taught that, and no one has stopped teaching it as well. And even then, people teach it with a sense of pity about it, like oh, poor old Black folks, whatever. It's like, bro, like it's not like that. It's more like help. Like, don't just sit. I don't know. Like, it's very frustrating because it's like for me at this job, I would say it's corporate, of course. And I live in a state where it's not many Black people already, sure. But I still can't feel this certain anxiety that, and I don't know, maybe it could just be me just overthinking things a little bit, but, you know, I can't help but feel like maybe, you know, I probably still scare people just by walking around being myself, you know, just by existing. Yeah. And it's like, I scare you, y'all scare me because y'all the ones that did the lynchings, right? So what are y'all scared of me for? Like, you're the ones who did the terrible shit. Like, how funny is that? I guess the fear is that of retaliation, even though, and I guess so much work has been put into trying to prevent a retaliation that you've done so much damage. Like, you've done a whole bunch of damage in the first place. And then, yeah, it's like, that's a mess. That's like, first there's slavery, or first there's colonialism, British colonialism. And then there's, and the missionaries. And then there's slavery. And then there's segregation and the race riots and lynchings. And then integration, a very rocky integration. It's still quite rocky because there's still people who were doing lynchings back in that time are still living today. And they taught their kids a certain way. And, you know, they took those kids to those picnics. Yeah. And now a lot of folks have to undo, and that's even if they even want to undo the bad teachings. And if they're not teaching their current kids right now, you know, to be shitty. And I'm pretty sure there's plenty of, like, you know, it's terrible to think that there's like there's 16-year-old white supremacists out here in 2022 because their family line has not done away with that line of thinking, that ideology. And because that ideology still exists, Black people will never be safe in this country. the trauma would never be healed without undoing that ideology and taking that out of the system completely. Like, there's a whole lot of books that have made white people as the superior race, like the Urantia book and the Rosicrucian stuff and the Theosophical stuff, some of that stuff. And there's a whole lot of stuff that just like made Black people out to be inferior. And that has done something to our people, because now it's like, you destroyed all of our stuff, destroyed it and stole it, put your name on it, and then told the rest of the world that y'all made it, and then like did away with the original creators, like, and then be shocked when you can't progress anywhere in science because all your science is stolen, and you don't even know the origin of the science you stolen, so you can't make any further progress in it because you killed the original thinkers of it and the original paperwork. It's so bizarro to think about it, isn't it? Like, it's really like, y'all really just do not realize what you've done? Is it just is that just part of the cognitive dissonance of being in the United States? To just feel like, oh, well, you know, we're the greatest, just all on our own, just no help at all, just only good old white folks made everything. It's like, no, definitely not. That's definitely not what the history says. Even in your own history, you can't even deny that you got it from somewhere else. And anything that you progressed on was still stolen from something else. And you can't get any further because you're just trying to do the same thing over and over again because you only have as far as you progressed. It's like when you make a copy of something, you know, you can copy it and try to improve on the copy, whatever. But if you're not an original creator, you're not going to create anything new. So, but you killed all the original creators, you denigrated all the original creators. Destroyed the original civilizations that created these things, and separated the entire people from that connection to that higher realm that they were getting information from. And now people are so filled with doubt and anxiety and depression about existence, and y'all want to preach equality all of a sudden. I mean, it's not that it's all of a sudden, but it's like the way that it's being done now and how it's being done. It's like only now you try to do it because you want to turn a profit on it, really. But it's not, you can't turn a profit on people that you're profiting off of, I guess. Like, it's like trying to create, like, it's like you destroyed all the other cycles of revenue to try to create this internal revenue that flow that doesn't even work properly, because once all the money flows up to the top, it doesn't come back down. So it doesn't work. And then you cut off people from making their own businesses successful, and then that cuts off the revenue flow for other people, and that's just a whole nother thing anyway. It's like, but like, the Black culture gets gutted, or I'm gonna say Black culture, the African culture has been gutted completely. Like, literally, like they dig up sarcophagi and then act like it's not people in there. Think about this. They dig up sarcophagi which are graves. These are dead bodies. These are my ancestors. They dig them up, put them on display as if they're only objects. But like, if I dug up Mama, if I dug up Mima, that's you know, if I dug up, you know, the old should be like, if it was the old clan members, like if it was the clan grandmaster, the first grandmaster clan, whatever dude, and we dug his body up and put on display, would that be equivalent as a, oh, look at this piece of history? Like, let's dig up the bodies of Civil War, or let's dig up the bodies of the fallen Revolutionary War warriors. How about that? And put that on like display. Is George Washington's coffin in the museum right now, or is it still in the ground in a tomb? I'm just being like, see, like, it's genuinely upsetting to think about, but I'm not even fully comfortable showing this aggression because it's not acceptable to white culture for me to get aggressive. Like, it's a trap kind of for Black people out here, because we can't express ourselves the way everyone else can express themselves without being perceived differently. I mean, even the Asian community, Native American communities, and Hispanic communities face the similar things, where they have to, even though they can sort of skate by a little bit because they're not dark, because of this caste system that's been created by the British. You know, like, I know that Indian people didn't have a caste system before, like, colonialism. I think it was like Roman colonialism, whatever, right? But or the Hellenistics, that's what it was. So I'm just trying to figure out what are people out here doing and thinking when they say they're trying to be inclusive and diverse, but it only feels so superficial because it's like, just because it's like, if you put, like, even though I am an extremely capable person and I'm, you know, and hardworking, and it can, you know, be that one, I can be a leader, I am a leader, and, you know, if you just put me as the face of a corporation thinking that's going to resolve the trauma of being a Black American, it's not. It's really not, because all Black people are going to see is a sellout, for one, because they just see somebody who's left their culture into the American culture, the same culture that oppresses us, and it's not gonna win that many brownie points. Sure, it'd be like, oh yay, they're, you know, it's like, yeah, okay, they're becoming more open, you know, yeah, cool, but it's not the same as, oh, like, it'd be different if, say, like, I haven't seen Walmart be like, oh, we're supporting Black businesses and something like that. Target's done a lot of that, actually. Target's trying to be very open in something, that kind of way. Like, they are doing very well about that. You know, being open about promoting Black-owned businesses and stuff like that. I think the whole thing is that Target's already got a reputation of being loved by white people. So I don't know how they're going to translate that into the Black community so much. I think, I mean, I guess Walmart be treating people like shit, so maybe that's what Target has going for them right now. Or maybe the whole Black Lives Matter thing when they burned down that Target was a ritual. Like, this is I think Target is like the only company, like major company, to be like, yeah, we're supporting Black-owned businesses, like #1. Being in the state of Washington, they have like a sort of a not too. I mean, I'm opening up. I'm running my business now, so I think they do have like a sort of a special, like, I think people. It's like in like you can like put like a banner on your website to make your thing like, oh, you're woman-owned, Black-owned, whatever, like POC-owned, as they say. But it's like, is it too little, too late? You know, maybe not. I kind of just feel like because I pray for peace. I want peace. I want people all to be respected and to understand each other. But I also want to be practical and realistic in the fact that there's still a lot of things that are unhealed and unresolved, and it's complicated. It's actually complicated because there's a lot of moving parts, and it's social. It's embedded in everything. And so whenever, it's like you gotta move all the stuff out the way. Like in Animal Crossing, you move all the stuff out the way to get the cockroaches out your house. So you have to like sort of move every piece of furniture around until your house is cleared. And if you have a big house, that's a lot of stuff to move around, to rearrange. You gotta fix the feng shui. But it's worth it for the abundance and for the happiness and for the peace. And it's like the only thing that will help is an overwhelming peer reassessment of justice in this country, and a real understanding of the pain that's happened, to move forward. Because just because one person is moving on and getting ahead doesn't mean that's gonna happen for everybody else, of course. Like, cause that's how it's happened for white people, because they were able to keep their generational wealth going because no one bombed their towns and their banks and put a fucking stop to it. So there needs to be a reparations for that. That is where the reparations come in. Like, it's more than cut a dang check. It's rewrite some shit, rearrange the house, eliminate these laws, make some amendments, do some legislative work, some judicial work, some executive action to really make a change for the better. Nothing short of that is gonna fix anything, because until we can get over these big ass mountains of bullshit that's been piling up for 400 years, really in the last century especially, because this is when it was supposed to have been changing, but a lot of it has just been forcibly kept in place to make sure that people stay in their place. And it's ugly. It's so ugly. It's hideous. And I really wish that more people could see that. And I think a lot of people do see it, but I think a lot of people don't know what to do about it either, because it's such a big thing. But if no one's talking about it either, it's not going to get changed either. And you get to address the problem directly like this. Like, from all the sides. As far as reparations and things like that go, I just laid it out like it has to be all these things. Like, it's social, judicial, legislative, executive, financial, economic things have to be resolved to really fix the problems with not just Black people, but indigenous people and immigrants to this country as well. for people who have immigrated in the past, and for the 4 million enslaved people. It's just for everybody. Because because it's just simple. Like when you fix the bureaucracy of everything, it resolves all the other issues that pop up because of it. Because the reason you can't build your house on that land there is because someone in the 1920s didn't want black people to build stuff there. So they made sure that they wrote it a certain way where it made it difficult to do stuff. That's what it is. That's what the legalese is. It's not that it's outright saying, oh, no Negroes allowed anymore. It just says you have certain types of things that a black person probably won't have access to or the knowledge of, because there's education wise too, especially like I just said, 10,000 years of destruction of black civilization is a book that should be required reading in schools, because it's true. They've done a real number on our people, and like I feel that in my DNA in a way, because my mom is Haitian and my dad's an American, Black American, and my mom comes from very proud people who, you know, fucking claimed their independence and nationality. And then on the other half of it, I have my father's side, who, you know, comes from sharecroppers. And, you know, before you were a sharecropper, you were definitely a slave before that. If he wasn't a native, if he's not an indigenous black man, black peoples, we are. That sounded very Yoda. But if we aren't like, but even then, you know, it's a big deal about ownership in this country as well, or in this world, about who owns what. And even though we really own nothing, nobody owns anything really, wink wink, but except for our bodies, and everything else is just you're sharing or holding on to it temporarily. That's a whole nother conversation about that, but I just want to know, like, who's out there really trying to do something. And I'm only saying this because I see people doing things, but there's a lot of, everyone has their own unlearning and reprogramming to do, and there's a lot of unlearning to do for everybody. And a lot of agitation has to be stopped as well. For this agitation for profit has to be stopped, especially. And you know, you just have to figure these things out. I hope that was a coherent message, but I think I got all of it out of my brain. All I wanted to say. Yeah, yo. Because we all just want to love each other right here, and these invisible barriers make it hard to love each other. Not hard, just uncomfortable, maybe. Because I like a white boy, and as we're having these conversations, and I'm learning this different perspective, and I'm sharing my perspective with him, and he's so open and listening, and it's it's making me realize the value that I have in my own opinion, and how, you know, like, I don't have to feel like I'm less than, or I have to make myself less than just to make myself comfortable, or make him comfortable, or make other people comfortable, rather. Because I think that's being recognized in a lot of in people who recognize that this is what's happened. And so we have to always this is why making safe spaces is important, because people are not safe in a myriad of ways, and we have this psychological sensitivity that we have to become accustomed to dealing with each other. And that's why being more compassionate and more open-minded is so important these days, so we can actually like work towards, you know, repairing and resolving these wounds. Because I think the only people who want a race war are the actual racists. So anyone who's talking about that stuff is just an actual racist. And maybe you just distance yourself from them, or try to get them to change their ways. You know, maybe go to a mixer, a mixed ethnicity mixer, to try to just get to know different people, and realize that we're all the same at the core of it all. You know, like we all have issues, we all have histories and traumas and things we're trying to deal with, and the lives we want to live, not just survive but thrive and raise our families in as well. And we want everyone to get along and to be happy here. I suppose the issue is like, you know, there's a few villages out here that are super welcoming and happy and accepting, and there's some that are just totally, you know, high-walled supremacist boundaries. Even though this whole race thing just has to stop, because, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it is dissipating on its own, or it's dissipating as people make progress. But we can't just blindly move forward and still leave these things in place, intact. Like, it's like bringing down, it's like the statues, you know, it's like we're really gonna walk around our lovely blended city, and there's like a statue of like Robert E. Lee up or something like that, like, or just freely waving neo-Nazi flags and say it's still a safe place. Like, no. Yeah, no, none of those Confederate flags, not even I mean, I don't know any black extremist groups, but any black extremist group doesn't have as much power as the Ku Klux Klan, who are actively in office right now in places. So any sort of black supremacist group doesn't scare me, or it shouldn't, but it just scares white people with the fact that, or it scares certain white people with the fact that black people would call themselves supreme, because that goes directly into their line of fear-based thinking that black people are going to annihilate them based off of dominant genetics, or whatever it may be. You know, wherever their fear is about black people, it gets riled up pretty easily when they think about the fact that black supremacists or black extremist groups even exist, even though white supremacists and extremist groups are literally the backbone of this country. Yeah, it's a mess. It's a complicated mess, and it's not even something that black people, black indigenous people, black and Black or indigenous people or Asians or Hispanics can't even handle, because this is something that we didn't build, and it's either, and we're not going to be allowed to restructure it. That's why we just have to build new structures ourselves and just tear down the shit that we got now with the help of progressive white people as well. And I hate to even be using these racial terms either, because I just have to use these terms now so, you know, it's understood what I'm talking about, because I just think people are people. But we just have been lied to and fed this socialized fucking drama, narrative about who we are based on, you know, our origins. And even though all our origins are the same, which is the Great Spirit, you know, people have been like creating this narrative to make themselves out better than they need to be and make others down to lower than them, just so they can have some kind of hubris and justify their conquering of other people's, because they know morally it's wrong. And that's why they always try to say, oh, moralism is, I think that's the whole trap about trying to argue against moralism, just because like there's a whole history of people who decided their morals were more important than people's lives and creating virtues based on supremacist ideas. I don't know. I mean, I kind of know, but I don't want to say I know everything. I just know that things have to be fixed in there. But I do know that things are being worked on. So I think I've gotten everything about that out of my mind. I mean, if not, I'll probably come up with a lot more after I talk to my friends again. Or just talk to people about it. You know, it's also kind of hard to have these conversations. Because I don't know how people... Because these are just... I think about these deep topics all the time. I think that would miss it. This is a whole other conversation. This is a whole nother video. But I think it does relate, because it's like... It's kind of hard to have these conversations with others. Because it's kind of weird for me, because like... I've gotten more comfortable talking about it now because of this stuff, because of my involvement in the internet stuff. But being out here in Washington, and people were just talking about it, just like it's, and they're just cool. Like, yeah, we want to solve these issues. We want to talk about these things. We want to hear your opinion, and I'm like so happy. Like, it does make me very happy. You know, like people are actually legit want to talk about these things and like really want to try to do something about it, like on a real level, a real practical level, not just, you know, being a loud mouth in the streets. So it does excite me quite a bit, you know. I just want to make sure that we're actually getting real work done out here, and not just doing a lot of, you know, gum flapping, but we need to do some like bootstrapping. I guess, and like do some and sign some P's and Q's and dot some I's and cross some T's about it, because it's a lot more than just conversation that needs to happen to really make things change for the better. And it's exciting to think about. It's exciting that there is an active, like, it's not the end for Black people. Like, it's not the end of white people either. Like, it's not the end of anybody but the fucking racists and bigots and all these other fucked up people with their fucked up minds and ideologies. Like, it's the end of them, but it's not. But it's the beginning. It's the awakening of like conscious-minded people who really actually want to do something about things, and who actually want to get closer to others. Like, like it does make me happy. Like it gives me a bit of comfort. I'm glad that people are stepping outside their comfort zones to try to bring me into a comfort zone, and people like me into a comfort zone about these things. And it would just be really bad if like there's if it's all a lie or something, or like when shit hits the fan, you know, something like that. But I don't know, but I have faith though. I've about it, about people not faltering when it's time for the wheel to hit the road about it, because stuff has to get done, like really legit done. Like, oh my goodness, like my whole crown chakra is like, yeah. And so I really hope this encourages people to, like, you know, I just want to encourage people to really just keep doing what we're doing right here, and just don't look back so much, and just move forward always, because we're making these moves, yo, slowly and surely, but we can make some giant leaps with our hands together, and just doing the thing, yeah. So I'm glad to end this on a positive note. So yeah.